name's Ben Edtl. My company is Edtl Handball. The company is one of the first of its kind to develop a complete wholesome brand for handball players in the United States and abroad. We're inventing the handball shoe, the handball footwear, handball apparel, handballs, handball gloves, and competing with current companies that are in the marketplace today. And doing it in a way that addresses the handball player more accurately, that addresses the new player, the street player, and the club player. There's a huge market, there's a huge opening for that, not a huge market, but a really huge opening, competitively speaking, for a company to come in and actually redefine the business of handball and create the business of handball. Handball players are largely underground. We makeshift our own gear from current existing gear to better suit our own needs. It's like skate in the 80s or surf even in the 70s before it became commercialized. There's quite a number of players, 3.5 million in the United States. It's a pretty good sized market. And it's the service, the competitors are basically a group of eclectic companies that lack the skill in the Northwest, in Portland where we are. They lack the skill outside of where we are. Because there's not such a draw for the apparel business that we have in Portland. So in Portland we have Nike, we have Adidas, we have Columbia, and there's so much talent here. And you can tell by the manufacturers around the country that are currently making gloves or goggles that they just don't have the skill that the people have here in Portland. And so I've been able to tap into that and develop something that's really going to knock the socks off of the handball business. Hurdles. There has been a lot of hurdles. I started my entrepreneurial career back in high school, and we'll just not speak of that any further. But my first business was when I was 21 years old, so I've been at it about 13, 14 years. And the hurdles that I've had to overcome have been tremendous along the way. The hurdles I've had to overcome to get where we are now as Edtl Handball, there hasn't been any. It's been very easy to find a team. It just has happened naturally and smoothly. I've got a world-class team of footwear and apparel industry executives, designers, brand managers. I'm blown away by how quickly and how easily this has come together. The first 2 months of even starting the business, we were able to raise $200,000, and we plan a launch in June 13 with a full collection, multi-line collection of apparel and footwear. That part might look easy from an outside perspective, but I think the biggest challenges I've had to overcome have been myself. My motives, my desires. You know, what drove me in the first place to start a business isn't what drives me today to start a business. In the past, I probably suffered from a great amount of low self-esteem, and I couldn't function in high school. I couldn't function in normal society. I couldn't hold a job, and that ran a number on how I perceived myself and how I perceived the world. And so when I found myself starting that first business and I saw it take off, it was an amazing moment, because if I didn't have this, I really literally wouldn't have anything. And so I found my place in life. And as a result of all of the driving factors that got me here, you know, I did things that were probably not principled. And actually no probably is about it, and I fell short and made a number of mistakes, a lot of mistakes, and I probably caused harm as well to some of the people I did business with. That first business was a minor success, but it was a success nonetheless. It made money and I didn't have to go to work for anybody else, and to me that was a success. My second business was a complete and total failure. It wasted 9 months of my life. I would get up in the morning and throw up before conference meetings and phone calls. I was so stressed out. I couldn't handle what was happening. But the reality is what was happening was I didn't have a business in the first place. What I wanted to be a business just wasn't. And it was a tremendous lesson to learn, is being able to identify what's a business and what's not a business. And I took that information and that knowledge and experience to my next attempt. I didn't have anything else to fall back on, no other career, so it was this or nothing. And so I had to go at it again. And I went after it again, and the next company was successful, and it was called Restaurant Tech. It is called Restaurant Tech, and we invented the restaurant industry's first web-based training information management software called Weight Trainer. And it was at a time long before the restaurant industry, even 80% of restaurants in this country, when we started this company, didn't even have high-speed internet. So we're talking about bringing, a spaceship to cavemen, and we did that. It was really challenging and difficult. We just it took a lot of tenacity to just to keep staying in the game and keep refining and rebuilding our message, refining and rebuilding our software, refining and rebuilding our sales skills as a company, my sales skills. I mean, I had to lead it as the entrepreneur. I had to sell this software, and I was terrified that it wouldn't sell. After all the investment dollars, after all the personal and emotional investment we made, I was terrified that it wouldn't sell, and I didn't know how to sell. I knew that I'm a salesperson. Everyone's told me that, but I didn't know how to do it. And I had a wonderful mentorship from a company called Logic. The CEO of that company called me up, and we owed him a lot of money, and he said, well, how are you going to pay me back? And I was like, well, I'll give you $50 a month, and it was just laughable at such a little amount of money. And he called me up later on, and he said, Ben, I don't think the problem is the software because we built it. I don't think the problem is the concept because restaurants are using it with great success. I think the problem is that you don't know how to sell. And he said, he asked me, if I taught you how to sell, would you listen? Would you follow direction? And I said, I absolutely will. And he started to teach me how to sell, and I learned the science of selling. And I took that science of selling and was able to, in the next year, I was able to bring in the first 60 to 100 customers. And from there, the company started to become more and more successful and become more and more adoptable by the industry. And we ended up completely revolutionizing the way that restaurants train in this country. And it wasn't necessarily me that did it. It was the people that came along that like Todd from Logic to teach me these things, and see the potential in me as an entrepreneur and the potential in the idea. And what I learned from him, I still have today, and I still use today. We ended up merging with that company, Logic, and I was able to get some freedom from that business. And it took me 6-7 years of working on that business alone. And today, I've embarked out into starting an apparel and footwear company, which I know nothing about, but I'm learning very quickly how these things get put together. And it's the same kind of scenario as the software company. I don't know anything about cloud software. I don't know how to program. I don't know how to do anything. What I do know how to do is I do know how to solve complex problems with simple solutions and bring other people around to be able to help see that happen. Otherwise, on my own, I'm incapable. One of the biggest challenges that I've faced as an entrepreneur, especially more on a technical point of view, is the ability to get funding. And the ability is more specifically, the ability to get funded in Portland. I found that I was with Weight Trainer. I was a participant in Angel Oregon, and it was a very strange experience. I felt more like a circus animal than an entrepreneur, and in going through that process and being desperate for funding, there was a lot of demoralization that took place. And I knew I had the right idea. I knew that we already had customers. We had people paying us at that time, and there were companies that were still in complete dream state that were actually making money and raising money. And my jealousy aside, we were able to get funded later on, but all of our first funding came from California. And by the way, my funding from that we acquired through Edtl Handball is also from California. But I think one of the biggest frustrations that we had was I was able to get funding for Weight Trainer from local angel investors, but it was after I was able to get past the committee style selection process and vetting process and actually get to be in front of some of the local angels here in Portland. And when they saw what we were doing and they saw our business model and they saw our software, they invested. They invested and they came on board. And those angel investors are so important to not only getting funded, but in improving the overall economy, because they know something we don't know. Every one of the investors from Portland that came on board with Restaurant Tech helped shape and helped us avoid pitfalls and gave us direction and taught me as an entrepreneur how to be a better entrepreneur, a better leader, a better businessman, a better decision maker, a better analyzer. You know, all these things that working with them was so powerful for me. It's not just the money that we need as entrepreneurs. We need the experience. And someone that comes along with their money and their experience, that's the value of an angel investor. And that's what we really need when we're in startup mode. And especially when we're in startup mode and we're newer to entrepreneurship. A lot of guys and women too come from careers and they see ideas, they spot problems in their work life that they can solve, and they come up with a solution, and now they're entering onto a completely blind path of entrepreneurship. It's what you don't know that's going to get you. And you don't know you've been gotten till it's already happened. And that's one of the frustrations of entrepreneurship. And it also cultivates one of the most important attributes of an entrepreneur. You know, how fast can you bounce back from a mistake? How quickly can you recover? And I think that goes for entrepreneurship, but it also goes for leadership. You know, we're human beings. We're going to make mistakes. We're going to see things. We're going to miss things that we should see. And until we see it for the first time, we don't always know what it looks like before we see it. And so we fall on our face. We make mistakes. But we've got to just pick ourselves up by the bootstraps and go, all right, let's take an assessment of what's going on, what led us into this, and let's lead ourselves out of this. And I've found that nothing, not one thing, not one mistake I've made has ever taken me out of the game completely. I don't think I'm on an abyss right now, to be honest. I think that there's that I think we start. My experience has been that I started out on this path of entrepreneurship from the bottom of the abyss. I didn't know anyone. I didn't have any connections. I didn't have any resources. I didn't have any education. I didn't have any experience. And it just took effort, tenacity, and just the unwillingness to give up in the career of entrepreneurship and as a whole, to where I began to learn. I began to change my behaviors. I began to change and grow up as an adult, as a man. I mean, I started this career at 21 years old, and I've grown up through it. You know, right now, I think that I'm probably on more of a personal growth spurt than I've ever been at any time in my life. And that transfers over to my business dealings. It transfers over to my ability to make things happen from a leadership standpoint. And today, you know, I've sort of, I guess you could look at it like crawling out of an abyss. And today I feel like I have a pretty good field of vision, that I don't have to worry so much about the outcome, that I need to take the right actions today and be humble enough to ask for help and give credit where credit's due, and let the people that are experts on my team do what they're best at doing, and not focus so much on leading them, but focus more on how I can support them as the CEO or the founder, to get what they need done, and think more about what I can give them over what they can give me. And when my mind is focused on those things, my work becomes easier. The things happen that I can't explain, that never happened before in my life in relation to entrepreneurship. It's far easier today than it's ever been. One of the most important qualities an entrepreneur can have is to be resourceful. You know, how to acquire and how to look find and acquire resources for the mission, for the company. And that's our job. When I had the idea of Edtl Handball and the concept, the first resource I needed was people that knew how to design apparel and footwear, because I don't. I wouldn't have a clue. I know how to wear it and play in it, but I don't know how to make it. And so I sought out to find those resources. And what I did is I started asking the investors I knew from Restaurant Tech and Weight Trainer from around the area, and I said, do you know anybody? They go, well, I'm not per se, but there should be, you know, a shitload of them around here. And I thought, well, then at some point I'm going to find them. And so I just started asking my friends if they knew. And a friend hooked me up with somebody that was their neighbor that I didn't know. And that neighbor emailed me and said this wasn't something that they were interested in doing, but that I should contact the Spark Tank, which is a local a brand and graphic design agency that only does business with Columbia and Sorel and Merrill and these sorts of companies. And so I blindly asked them. And without much effort, they offered me to do the work as an equity stake. And they'd never worked with a startup before, and they were totally excited. And it was just contagious. That is a huge resource. That connection with them led me to Sean Beers, Carl Blakesley, guys in our footwear and apparel community that are just incredibly skilled and talented people. And you know, those are the resources we're talking about. I mean, the best resources are the people around you. If you don't know anybody, you know somebody. My very first business, I didn't know anybody, so I talked to my friends. And one of my friends' father-in-law was an investor out of California. And I went down there and I met him. And that led to me starting my first company, Weight Trainer, that actually did something. From there, my network of resources just grew. That's part of that climbing out of the abyss. You know, the abyss is when you're out, when you have no resources, when you have no experience, when you're about to walk on a path you do not know what it looks like. And today I do know what it looks like. I don't know the outcome, but I know what it looks like. I know what it looks like to walk on the path. And the only reason I do know that today is because I never got off the path. I stayed on it no matter how hard it was and how scary it was, and no matter what the cost that I had personally to me. What really inspired me over the last few days is, and that's inspiring me the most right now, is what's happening in our elections, our presidential elections. You know, watching Michelle Obama talk about her husband as a man, as a person, as a father, that just inspired me. You know, because we get caught up in titles, and we get caught up in prestige, and we get caught up in power and money and what we're trying to do as entrepreneurs and as leaders. But the reality is what's most important is that we're sons, that we're husbands, that we're fathers. And if we pay, you know, and that just inspires me, the love that she has for him. She sees right through the president and sees the man. And I just haven't been more inspired, I would have to say, in recent time than watching the DNC and looking at the contrast of people and feeling really happy to be a part of that as well. But I think Michelle Obama actually is one of the people that inspires me the most, because given the limelight, the prestige, and the power of being a first lady or even the president of the United States, there's a certain amount of humility that they have where they can be vulnerable and honest. It's an honesty I have not seen in any kind of politics since I've been alive, and that just inspires me. You know, inspiration. I guess I'm one of those guys that I'm often inspired, and it can be from any source. May not even have anything to do with business. But in business and entrepreneurship, what inspires me, and even what humbles me, is where I'm at today. You know, the team that I have, that I get to be a part of, is phenomenal, and they inspire me. They're so good at what they do, and I'm so blessed to have them with me on what's originally my vision. And I'm inspired every day. I do work with the school leader, a public charter school here called LEAP, and those kids inspired me. They're 17, they're 18, they're 16, they're learning about business plans. Some of them have their own businesses, and that just inspires me to be able to be a part of something like that. I guess I think about the big guys, the Bill Gates and the the Steve Jobs of the world, and they inspire me, but not like the everyday experiences that I get to have and be a part of as an entrepreneur, and not like the changes that are made that I get to be a part of as an entrepreneur. I mean, it inspires me. It's bigger than me. Going out and changing an industry like we did with Weight Trainer, it's bigger than me. There's something bigger at play, and I get to just be a conduit or a part of that. And that